tracking the pulse of the road and the future of flight. From viral trends to policy shifts, we cut through the traffic to bring you the stories that drive us. Your fast-track guide to everything on the move starts right now. From the Billionaire News Channel studio to Mellow 947 BFM, your playlist made better. Sitting in for Paulo Del Rosario, I'm Gie Barroga. This is Shift Happens. As urban centers become increasingly congested and fuel prices remain unpredictable, more Filipinos are looking for alternatives to the daily grind of traffic. For many, the solution isn't found on four wheels, but on two, as cycling transforms from a mere hobby into a vital mode of transportation. However, the shift to active transport is not without its challenges, from disconnected bike lanes to roads that often prioritize speed over safety. Creating a truly walkable and bike-friendly city requires more than just paint on the pavement. It demands a fundamental rethink of how our urban spaces are designed. Now, advocates are now pushing for mobility justice, calling for cities that serve people rather than just vehicles, ensuring that every commuter, regardless of their mode of travel, can reach their destination safely and with dignity. Still, the challenge remains. How do we transform our car-centric streets into inclusive spaces for everyone? To help us understand the future of urban mobility and the reclamation of our public roads, we are joined today by licensed urban planner and the founder of Manila Moves, Aldrin Pelicano. Hi Aldrin, thank you so much for coming over to the show. So as mentioned earlier, we had several advocates, bike commuting users in the show. So what makes Manila Moves different from the rest? Because I know that you are all part of a bigger coalition. So what makes Manila Moves different from the rest?
Well, first, thank you for having me here, G. Manila Moves really started as a platform to communicate that we can move around Metro Manila in particular in a much better way. We can choose not to drive at all times in most trips that we make in the city. And so when I first started this personal passion project in 2018, the goal is really to communicate and engage with policymakers and engage with different stakeholders, including the community, the road users themselves, all of us. And from a planning perspective, I started the group as a daily commuter myself around 2015. This was the time that I was finishing up my diploma degree in urban and regional planning in UP Diliman. And when I took the local exam, fortunately I passed it, and I needed a way to process what I learned from the university and what I was experiencing on the road myself, on my bike. I didn't start cycling like many, among the people who had really a long time of being exposed to the joy of cycling or the benefit of cycling. I actually learned cycling as an adult. I remember around 2014 when our firstborn, when we had our first son, the traffic from where we live in Pasig to go to the work, to my work in Ortico Center, roughly 4 kilometers, would take me an hour. When I would be driving my car, or if I choose to take the public transport. And then one morning, I was stuck somewhere between, I think, Meralco and C5, and I had to walk because I will be late. So I thought to myself, if I'll end up walking, I might as well find a way to walk faster or to reach my destination faster, and that's where I got into cycling, but not knowing how to cycle myself. I had to find my group. I mean, there are existing groups who advocate for cycling as everyday transport. I connected with them, and that's where I started my sort of journey in promoting cycling myself.
Yeah. So Aldrin, you actually hindi ka fully bike commuting all throughout kasi you also use public transport. You have your foldable bike, if I'm not mistaken. So aside from really biking, you take the train, you take the bus, if, I'm not sure if you're also doing, if you're also taking TNVS and the other modes of transportation. But as a daily bike commuter, how would you see this landscape change throughout the year? Since you started 2014, 2015, that's more than a decade ago na.
Yes, yes, that's true. Marami nang nagbago, definitely. When and this is really in parallel with a person's motivation and skill set and confidence. When I started myself, I couldn't make the whole trip on my bike. I remember when I moved to Makati for my work, from Pasig, I would even cycle first to Robinson's Galleria because there was a P2P terminal there to go to Ayala. And back then, I mean, right now, when I talk about it, I couldn't believe that I actually experienced that myself because apparently, as I learned it much later on, I could actually bike the whole way through, around 13 kilometers from Pasig to Makati CBD. And so, what I've learned though from that experience up to now is you can definitely combine cycling and walking, definitely with public transport, and it makes up for a much better, more efficient travel in Metro Manila. However, I mean, having said that, our public transport is obviously needs of like sort of much improvement, and work is underway already. We see big ticket rail projects like our rail networks are being built up, subway, but there's definitely you've heard about this from your previous guests and advocates as well, that there's an issue about supply and the quality, the reliability, all of this,
of bike infra as well,
and bike and active transport infrastructure and facilities as well. So there's much to be done, but still, people needs to move around. We need to make essential trips every day, right? And so there's definitely demand that needs to be resolved or addressed by combination of policy and infrastructure.
Okay, you've mentioned about demand. So right now we have the fuel crisis, and you've mentioned earlier the previous guests that we had, and back during the pandemic, nagkaroon din ng boom when it comes to active mobility, and now it's becoming something that is being talked about again. But still, there are safety concerns. And it continues to be a concern to many, considering that a larger number of people are really not car users. So your take on that?
Definitely safety is a barrier. It's the main factor why people are not encouraged to even give active transport, cycling and walking a try. It's really hard to convince them, and understandably, because of the lack of proper and safe infrastructure. We do see in the past 5 years, especially when the pandemic happened, we have evidence that government can really shift, can really move. They back in 2020, due to constant and persistent efforts of advocates and citizens, we saw like history in the making allotment of budget at the national level, and that's when we saw this building of bike lanes at the height of the pandemic, and even although in the past 2 or 3 years, unfortunately, there's been a constant reduction. Instead of sustaining the gains of active transport, we are now dealing with the sort of lagging. We're now lagging instead of 10 steps forward. I think we're seeing 30 steps backward. And this has been really a major factor in convincing people that they can choose to not drive, even particularly for short trips. When I spoke about demand, there's really demand, because in the past 5 years, some of my friends, some of people I've met along this journey of promoting active transport in the Mobility Awards group, a group of NGOs and people's organizations and volunteers. We organized bike counts, volunteer bike counts in the past 5 years. Every year, around June to July, we would do, together with volunteers, we would count people on bicycles for 1 hour in the morning and afternoon. This is what traffic engineers would call like peak commuting hours, peak commuting window. And just last year, our volunteers were able to count more than 218,000 of people, of Filipinos, riding bicycles, at least in 15 localities, 10 outside of Metro Manila, and then 5 cities in Metro Manila. So even outside of Metro Manila, like in Danao City, Mandaue, Iloilo, Naga, Cagayan de Oro, people are cycling, people are riding all sorts of small wheels, human-powered, like even tricycles in Danao, where they registered the highest percentage of women choosing to ride those tricycles because to make essential trips, going to the market, taking caregiving, which are not really captured. So there's really the demand that the government cannot just dismiss or not take it to consider when they are building bike lane infrastructures. I mean, right now we're only seeing strips of paint all around, which is really both frustrating, but also something that should really push advocates and citizens to demand more evidence, demonstrate, and repeatedly, not I mean, even outside but even in the country, studies have shown that people will choose to cycle or walk if there's really dedicated space for them, that they are protected. This is really a bit polarizing topic now, understandably, because everyone from government to private sector to regular people are so accustomed, we are so used to seeing our roads being dedicated, allotted for motor
Cars,
vehicles.
yeah.
And when we talk about movement, we only think about driving. But facts are in, more than 80% of households in Greater Metro Manila area don't even own or drive cars.
Yeah.
And so what do the minority, I mean, what do this majority choose? They choose to ride public transport. They choose to cycle. And these people are not really captured consistently in terms of like an institutional counting. That's why in the past 5 years, we've been organizing bilang siklista just to show to government that, hey, Filipinos are really cycling.
Yeah. So frankly, would you say that the government isn't doing enough to support, the majority, the bigger number of members of the community?
Yes, I mean, we just have to call a spade a spade. There's so much to be done again. But to acknowledge and to give credit, we do recognize that definitely the landscape has changed, at least for the better. Not I mean, when I started being so getting to know what cycling can do for myself at a personal level, I didn't have the vision. I didn't see that this might happen to us. That in fact there's like DPWH, DOTR, and other
MMDA,
government agencies
yeah.
would even come together. There's an active transport joint admin order already in place. So we don't lack the policies right now, but the issue is really in terms of better implementation and really taking it beyond further, not just to settle with, for example, we do have current set of design guidelines issued by DPWH, but even with this current set of design guidance for putting up bike lanes, they didn't use the most updated references.
Yeah.
From
That would
abroad.
fit what we have right now, what we
Yes,
currently have.
that would really benefit
Yeah.
and really encourage more. I mean, we're seeing EDSA being rehabilitated.
Yeah.
And
Were you able to see the progress?
yes, because that's part of my route going to Makati CBD, and I do recognize that it's still a work in progress. Secretary Dizon made the pronouncement that I think the actual completion of the improved sidewalk or shared space for pedestrian and cyclists will be completed around July. But from what we're seeing, it's still like, disconnected sections of EDSA. I think what we need to really see, and hopefully DPWH will not miss out on this opportunity, is to make sure that continuity and comfort would not be, and the overall quality will not be, it should be prioritized. Yeah.
All right, let's hold that thought first. So we're going to pause for a short break. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. And we're back. This is Shift Happens. Let's continue right where we left off. We're still joined by licensed urban planner and the founder of Manila Moves, Aldrin Pelicano. So before the break, Aldrin, we've talked about the challenges, the progress also of the EDSA rehabilitation. So right now, what would you say is like the key elements for an effective cycling infrastructure in the country?
Yeah, there are basically three things to consider. Number one is there should be safe and connected networks. Second is integration, and the third one is end of trip facilities. And these three, elements are typically supported by having what we call hardware, software, and orgware. Hardware would refer to actual infrastructure facilities, the bike lanes, the improve, enhance footpaths. Software would cover policies, both at the national level, which is really important in our context because much of the changes that happen at the local level on the streetscape, literally, are really driven from the top. Design guidance are issued by DPWH, and these are followed by local governments, and all. I mean, most developments, if not all, are really, by the private sector complies government policies. And then orgware, this would refer to your governance, funding, and accountability. Again, going back to the public sector, I mentioned about finally, back in 2020, we active transport getting a slice of the pie in our national budget, and there are also some budget opportunities that local government have been able to tap into to develop and innovate and come up with different projects. So these three components would support the building of a cycling city, and this is what's really important to think about is based on our experience right now. It will really take a village. It's not just dependent on what the government does, but even with the private sector, it's really an important player or stakeholder. Going back to our initiative in the Mobility Awards, we've been able to see how the private sector businesses play a very important role. Most of our malls now, it's become sort of a norm and standard already that they provide bike parking for their guests and visitors and clients, and more institutions, whether it's hospitals, banks, schools. That's why in the past years, the Mobility Awards, we've given recognition to these bike-friendly businesses and workplaces, and the diversity of the awardees is a testament that more and more people are really acknowledging that driving is not the only way to move around.
But is there actually a city or an LGU, for example, that can really be a model to everyone here in the Philippines for a walkable, bikeable, and roads that are for everyone?
I think that's a valid question, but I would respond to it in terms of avoiding that trap of putting a particular local government or organization and say that this is the model, because it's really good to recognize, in fact, that what's happening right now in the country, in our experience, is very unique to us in terms of instead of looking for a model. I think what we can really strive towards is really learning from one another. I think there are really good stories in Quezon City. Quezon City in particular has really shown other LGUs that if they put in the work, like allotting the budget, institutionalizing the change in the organization, Quezon City has a green transport division that is really institutionalized with personnel who are really, they have plantilla positions, they are budgeted, and the work that they produce it really supports the kind of work that they are able to accomplish. They have provided for more than 200 kilometers of bike lanes. I mean, some are less than ideal, but for the most part, you've seen the protected bike lane along Quezon Avenue in Commonwealth. These are bidirectional, 2-lane bike lanes that no one really foresaw or might have foreseen that it might happen to us here in Metro Manila. But we do have that, something to be proud of. But then again, there are still constant areas of improvement. Marikina now is fast catching up and then really revisiting their old reputation of being the first cycling-friendly city in Metro Manila. They've recently launched, with support from DOTR, a very good end-of-trip facility with showers, with lockers, and secure and protected bike racks, which again is a good model to learn from by other localities. Iloilo City obviously has always been there in the conversation because of the culture that they have built in many years. Perhaps not in terms of the actual like facilities. They do have the dedicated bike lane, cycling path along the diversion road and the Esplanade area, but Ilonggos for so many years have just adopted a kind of lifestyle that they just hop on a bike and move around, which is really something to emulate or to copy by other localities.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot about the Philippine scenario. Recently, you were in Taipei, and you know, where do you position the Philippines in the bike industry? Because in one of your social media posts, you said that Cambodia and Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken, they're getting investments for bike production hub, and these are our Southeast Asian neighbors. So where do you see the Philippines in that?
Definitely, there's just an upward trajectory for our bike, our local bike industry. I'm quite familiar and know some of the people that you know are really important stakeholders in our bike industry, and I think there's just so much potential. We do have really world-class, really good bike builders, bike technicians, mechanics, and really you know really good bike shop owners that are really not just in the business of selling bikes, but really building a community. I think they do deserve more opportunities to come together. I posted about this some years back. In some other countries, bike dealers form a really good, a cohesive organization, and then they engage or lobby with the government to get policy incentives, etc. I think that also needs to happen locally. I think especially now with the shift, I mean, with the introduction of e-vehicles, where hopefully we don't miss out that there's also like two wheels that are electric and still the regular push bikes that still need to be part of the movement towards less dependence on fossil fuel motor vehicles.
Is there also bigger demand for light electric vehicles like yung e-scooters, e-bikes, and all of that as compared to the normal ones that we pedal, I mean?
There's really obvious difference, but I think the important element to this is that each kind of what we call like micromobility options would cater to different users. So, I mean, for example, like myself, I do bike a regular bike, but I do own a full-size electric bike, which is really useful in my case when I need to make to go faster or to make sure that I don't really sweat more compared to, I mean, if I don't need to put in the workout, I can choose to ride my e-bike, and or if I need to really bring more cargo than usual, there are more options for me. And I think this is really the main message that we're not really anti-car per se, but we are pro-choice. I mean, we need more choices for all kind of people and for all trips that we make. There's also a principle in building cycling city or a livable city that we need to consider all ages and abilities. And what it means is that you cannot just factor in when you build an infrastructure, road infrastructure, that will only cater for the able-bodied. We need to see and support like the elderly and the young children to be independent, to be productive as well, and they need to be able to choose the most suitable transport option for them.
Okay, but very quickly, for those who are only starting the shift to active mobility, since it's summer right
Yes,
now,
yes.
mainit, and we're exposed to pollution. What are your tips for them, for those who will be, trying to shift into active mobility to protect themselves?
Yep. From day one, and I can only talk about my own experience, which is also similar to others. You don't need to bike the whole way through, for example, the whole trip. And what you do is you plan your trip, your daily trip, whether it's going to the bank, going to the office, doing a grocery run, and then you break it down. You need to be deliberate on this. And for example, like if you can find a way to combine public transport with your cycling, that is a really good first step. Rather than being discouraged that you've got 10 kilometers to cover, but also I think you just need careful planning. For example, like typically people would just try to bike first over the weekend when car volume is much lower, there are fewer cars, and then you slowly build on your confidence, having spent more time on your saddle, on your bicycle, because a main factor that really discourages people is when they mix with motor vehicles. That's really the main issue right now.
Okay, based on the conversation, of course, I feel like we still have a long way to go. But what is your vision for a walkable, bike-friendly Philippines? Like, how do you envision it to be?
I think a straightforward answer would be like a Metro Manila that my children, for example, I've got 2 young children, age 11 and 9. If they could choose to ride their bikes to go to the panaderia where we live in Pasig, if they could choose to like cross Shaw Boulevard on their bikes to go to the little open space there across where our house is, I think that would be my vision of a safe, livable, bike-friendly, walking-friendly city. If we can combine, if I could easily like bike to say Shaw Boulevard Station, park my bike there, hop on the MRT, and then take off at EDSA Taft Station, and then ride a modern jeepney to go to Mall of Asia or somewhere, or Intramuros towards Manila. That's the vision. When you don't have to plan your day, but with driving, and where do I need to park? What is the not so expensive car parking facility that I need to find for myself? That would be my vision of a really livable and active transport friendly city.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Also, he is Aldrin Pelicano, licensed urban planner and the founder of Manila Moves. Thank you so much for coming over to the show. And that concludes our round of the stories driving the industry forward. Sitting in for Paulo Del Rosario, I'm Gie Barroga. Join us again tomorrow on Shift Happens, your fast track guide to everything on the move.